Okay, now we got me. So let's get everybody back. Let's get everybody back. Okay, I will wait for those to rejoin. Okay, I'm back up. Hey, Tequila. Back up. The first one was not showing pictures. Hey, Tara. There we go. There we go. I don't know what was happening, why I was not being seen. Didn't want to do the black screen on today. Hey, Leslie. So, since we kind of like 5 minutes past 9 o'clock already, what's interesting about tonight is that when I kind of did the notes, I remember the last live and how long it took. This particular live, I had 7 bullet points. This one has 21. So don't know if they're going to be as long as some of the others. However, here we go. Um, give me one more moment. Give me one more moment. All right, all right, all right. So let us go ahead, get started. Don't need to do all the introductions. Everybody know that I am Wayne Johnson with Doc in Queen Ministries. So let's get going. Oh, thank you for the lovely blinds that I have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, look, I want to first start out with this, with the question basically being the difficulties of forgiving yourself after hurting the one you love. What you have to understand for me, and I know here I'm kind of like speaking for all mankind, uh, even though I'm not. Um, the first thing that comes to my mind is what hurts is when you know that your wife is the best person for you. I've said before, you know that you know that you know. And for me, that was many, many years ago. You just know. Hello, Francesca. How you doing? Um, glad that you're here. You know that your wife is your wife. That's something that I believe God gives the man. Um, so you know that you know that you know. My situation, nothing different. Happened to one day go with my cousin. He was already dating a female. I went there, went with him. Um, my wife came in at the time, didn't know her, came in the door, and I kind of played the hard to get situation. Asked for my number, really wouldn't give it to her, blase, blase, blah. But you still know that you know that you know. And so that's the first biggest hurt, is because you know that person is meant for you. And when you know something is meant for you, it's hard to lose it. Just think of if you wanted a car, or if you want your favorite this or your favorite that. It means a lot to you. For guys, and I'm working on that, not saying but for guys, when we're into collecting cars, different toys, trophies, you usually have a favorite. And with that favorite, you do not want anything to happen to it. And it's the same with your wife, because when you hurt that one, you know that you have fumbled the one who was meant for you. And in my case, you got to think about the amount of years that we have been together, and starting all the way back early high school. So it's difficult. It's tough. So I at least got through that first bullet point, and I'm going to look at the chat just in case we have some questions on that as well. All right, all right, all right. Okay, good. Now, the next one that I put in is, it also brings back regrets. And when I mean it brings back regrets, is that it also makes you think of other things you have regret in life. For me personally, one of the things that I regret, and I think we all have some regrets, but the biggest regret that I have besides that, it makes me remember playing football in middle school. And I was pretty good football player in middle school, despite my small frame. I played both ways. So I started both ways in middle school. And then we won the championship my middle school year. And my particular school hadn't won the championship in some time. And so then when I moved to high school, I didn't play ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th. However, those same guys, or many of the same guys that played went to middle school with me, they played high school. And people don't remember what you did in middle school later on in life. They only remember high school football. And that was a big regret for me, because I didn't play high school football. And it's the same thing when you've hurt your spouse. The regret you feel, it's the same thing, but far worse, because this is a human being that is a part of you and that you are doing life with. So the regret is there, and it brings up other regrets. I'm just bringing that one up in particular. Let me make sure that great. Okay, now, whether you understand this spiritually or not, but if you do understand this spiritually, you understand that your woman is everything to you. Spiritually, you begin dealing with this, you begin knowing that that woman is a part of you. Earlier on, before you get involved spiritually and start studying this from a spiritual standpoint, You just look at it as I'm attracted to her, she's attracted to me, and I don't want to lose her because my feelings are involved. But once you begin to learn this from a spiritual standpoint, it even takes a deeper cut in you because you feel for that person, you're physically attracted to that person, you emotionally, mentally, and now you learn that you are spiritually connected and you are the one who has cut the cord in your relationship. And that hurts because once you begin to understand that this is a spiritual journey, you begin to understand it is bigger than, you like that person likes you. You understand all of the ramifications of who it affects. And then there's so many that it affects that you can't even begin to recognize who is going to affect your grandchildren, your children, your friends, your family. And when I mean family, not just your family, but your in-laws as well. I've done some videos lately about in-laws. And the reason why I've done videos about in-laws because I've seen some in-laws out and about. And a couple of the in-laws that I've seen seem to have got a little, I don't want to use the word hate towards me, but you can tell the difference, or at least I feel the difference. Not meaning that that is the case, because it could be just me and what's going on in my heart about it. But it's still there. And you want to be in a good light. Like I said, you don't want it to be where there's any hostilities, because really nobody knows completely the situation. People can only speculate. And I know that we have to have closure as people. So that's when the speculations come in. And oftentimes it will be wrong, but it's still there. And so those feelings get in, and you feel like you dropped the ball because it takes two, but it only takes one to mess it up. And when you're the one who feels like you have messed it up, it's a different feeling. It's hard to deal with daily, especially when you're someone like myself who works with people on a consistent daily, day in and day out. People who are dealing with all types of trauma, and you are helping other people deal with their trauma, and you are one who caused the trauma in your situation. It's like walking around all the time with egg on your face or egg on your head. It's not a good feeling, because you called to help people, but you are the one who messed up your own situation of the one that means so much to you. This what really hit me very much as I been standing or stood or whatever you want to call it. What really got me was learning about spiritual death. You go through that spiritual death. You understand that it's a feeling that you really can't describe, because it is so different than anything else. It is like a low point. And when you have that spiritual death, you have to begin to allow God to heal you. And you know that your flesh is fighting that healing, because There are times you just want to just lay in it. You want to just not be bothered. You know that things have changed. A lot of the things that you used to do, you don't want to do those anymore. You don't want to be around certain people. You know that other people are talking, but that spiritual death that happens, I know you have to also be considerate that God has allowed you to be physically alive and you don't have physical death, but that spiritual death is painful. And you know that you're going through a spiritual death. So you can begin to understand what many of the prophets, the disciples, and Jesus went through when you deal with that spiritual death, because you know that the only way you can be resurrected is through God. There's nothing that you personally can do but the things that God will call you to do, and that's following his instructions. And for a while, many of us who may be in this situation may have different levels of how we been connecting with God in the first place. So depending on where you at, and even those who have been in the presence of God per se, you ain't been in the presence of God when it comes to this. This is something totally new. It's just like having a baby. There's no real instructions on it. It's just like being married. There's no instructions on it. So spiritual death for something that you call, there no instruction. So you're starting from quote unquote darkness, looking for God to give you the light. And it's a battle. It reminds me of the scripture, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Well, if you're dealing with this, there's times you are tugged and pulled that you do fear, that you do worry. And then you remember that you are the one who put yourself in this situation. I mean, when we think about it, we understand that we're not the one who are called to take our own life. Well, with this, you sort of took your own situation and you blew it. You messed it up. And, you know, we know how the enemy works. We see how crafty he is. We see what he did to Eve. We see throughout other people in the book. So you can't use that quote unquote for an excuse. We know he's there, but however, you still have to understand that you kind of put yourself on that cross. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, so, so for me, and I think for being in the field that I'm in, helping others, one, I do one-on-one counseling, and I have a young young little kid that's 3 years old that I see all the way up to 18. So there's a wide range at one of the jobs that I do. So it's a wide range. And what hurts for me is I'm helping people and I failed myself, but my job is called for me to help someone else come out of their situation. And I know for myself, the person I am, I forgive easily. I don't hold a grudge on people. I remember many years ago when I was in college, I had a good friend of mine. He's still a good friend, but he had used my student ID and got a speeding ticket to the point of I had him duplicate my college ID so we both could play basketball together. And he used it when he got pulled over for a speeding ticket, which back then, when you're younger, at least for me, I knew how to get enough speeding tickets, pay for them, but it was short of them suspending my license. Well, he got the ticket by using my college ID because he had told the officer he didn't have his driver's license. So they used that, and my license almost got suspended. And I had to go to court and all that to get that rectified. However, I forgave him. And just because you forgive your spouse don't mean that your spouse is going to forgive in the same way that you do. And more than likely, that person is not, because God puts two people together that you do. And more than likely, that person is not, because God puts two people together, and most of the times they are opposite. That's why they attract. And so I am more forgiving. I can think of another time that me and my spouse, and I had to forgive her, and I did. And this was early on when we were married. But just because I'm willing to forgive and I understand about second chances, don't mean that your partner will. And so that's another hurt that a man or myself has to deal with, because we all are not the same. And every time we get wrong, we always want people to give us the exact thing that we will give them, but they're not us. And when we have that expectations, well, I forgave you, well, they're not you. They have a total different makeup. And so you have to understand there's nothing you can do about it. We all are different. We all have different levels of how we deal with situations. But when something happens, we want people to forgive like we would forgive, but that's not the case. Now, I'm just hoping, like we all, this is part of the reason why we have to read our word, study our word, because God has called us to forgive, which it's about doing what thus says the Lord, as opposed to how I feel. But for a while, you got to understand you don't know who you're dealing with when it comes to their connection with God and where they're at with that particular situation. And if they even understand what God wants them to do when it comes to forgiveness. How do you get over past trauma and move forward? I believe that how you get over past trauma is, which is tough and what most people don't want to do. You have to deal with it. You have to get in and go through it. I'm not sure. This is just my belief. I believe that men can go through those traumas easier than women, but I could be totally wrong. And the reason why I say that is because I play sports and I don't like to work out. However, I know that's part of it. So I am able to push through. I push through because that's what it's going to take, not because I want to do it. And I a lot of times I look at, and even seen some on occasion, and I know every woman is not the same. I've seen where some women are not willing to push through that trauma. Also, like I said, I'm in the field, and I've dealt with certain guys, married couples in particular, and I'm not suggesting marriage counseling because I have not seen where marriage counseling work. I think it's better off if the couples go individually by themselves as opposed to married couples, because what I've seen, who I've talked to, and even what I've heard, when married couples go together, more than likely, and the ones that I've dealt with, and there's been quite a few guys that are married that I've talked to who went to marriage couple, the moment that the spotlight is placed on the female, the wife, that's when everything breaks down. Because for some reason, the man is ready to say what he's done wrong, and they do. But when it's time for the woman to do it, the cases that I've seen, the history that I've dealt with, that's where it breaks down. And that is what I'm thinking about. But far as trauma, you got to go through it. You got to go through it. And for many of us, sometimes we don't even understand that. And we have to have somebody help us to recognize where it started from. But, we human beings, we never really like to hear people tell us our faults. We always look at other people. So we point it everywhere else and we don't see it. And I mean, that's kind of the reason why when God has us to pray, especially when we're confessing our sins, he wants us to confess the sins of the ones that we unknowingly sin against him, because we can't see it. We can't see it. It's just like many times, this is another true one that I've seen and heard. A lot of times, guys don't understand when a female likes him. But other females see it all the time. Other females know ahead of time if she's flirting with you, if she's after you, and guys don't see it. So it's like we're more upfront with things when it comes to stuff like that. And I don't think we kind of get into it or even look for it. We just go about it, and it is what it is. We're kind of more like, I think we're more like an open book. And then we're also not more to look into it unless that is, your field, or that's your study, or that's something you're putting some effort into. Right. I get it, and I agree, Leslie, that many times it's so interesting, and that's why I say it. Just because you would forgive that person for that act, but if the shoes was on the other foot, don't think that necessarily they're going to forgive you, because it's not always going to happen. And actually, I think it rarely is going to happen because y'all two different people. But we do want someone to give us the same grace and mercy that we will extend to them. But understand that might not be the case. And that's unfortunate. We like to always say that's not fair. Well, it's not, but it is what it is, and we can't get around it. Just because it's not fair doesn't make it change anything. And so we can only deal with what we're dealing with, if that makes sense. Another hurt is this: everything you built together. Let me tackle destinies. It seems like men hold on to things longer than women do. Men have that one heartbreak, and I guess it just depends. I think it just depends on what it is, and I think society has played into a lot of that. And I think this one of the bullet points that I have, and so I'm gonna go ahead to that, and I'll find it somewhere later because I think it kind of deals with Destiny's question. I know that my spouse has mentioned and worry about how, in particular, my friends and my side of the family sees things about her, when I may be the one who has caused this cause in the first place. But I assured her, whatever happens, is that I still have her back, no matter what, which is another heartbreak because it's so hard to deal with knowing that you are defending your spouse after you caused the heartbreak, but the people on your side of the family or the people close to you, they're only going to see your side because we people have biases. And so with those biases, that's going to be the case. And so I'm not so sure if men hold on longer. I think it depends on whatever the act is. Certain acts bother men a whole lot more than female. And I think it's because our society has kind of shaped us to look at it that way. So we buy into it. But all in all, that's why this is so important for us to stay close to the Lord, because he wants to remove all of that. It ain't about what society says. It's about what he says. And so we have to get in tune with what God would want us to do. And it's tough. It's tough because as a guy standing, as opposed to a woman standing, there seems to be so many more women standing. Hey, Joan, it seems to be so tough because men are told, just go about your business and find somebody else. It ain't that serious. There are plenty of fish in the sea. And, on the last slide, we already talked about there are plenty of beautiful women. So just move on. You don't have to stay there. Why are you dealing with that? Just go find somebody else. You can do that just like that. But when you are allowing God to move you, it don't work like that. And I think that, when we read, the Bible, it always kind of talk towards from a man's point of view. Just like, for example, the feeding of the 5,000. That was 5,000 men. More than likely, that didn't count the women and children. So we're talking about possibly 25,000 extra people. So, and we see today, I know at least at my church, and I'm sure at many other places, there are more women there than men. And so we're dealing with just focusing on what we're going with the men, but the women, the women stand and do their part. And I know there's been research done on when a man goes to jail, a woman stays by his side for the most part until he gets out, or on a higher percentage. But if a woman goes to jail, that man doesn't stick around. That percentage is far lower. So women are more going to stand the test of time for their partner as opposed to a man. And our society say to the men, just move on. Just move on. Yes, they do say we are taught don't put all your eggs in one basket. And we're taught that early. The other heartbreak is everything you built, you don't have someone to share it with. I know this beautiful home of mine, or ours, I like to say, we dedicated this to the Lord. And when you are separated, then it's like the things that you have built. I mean, we've owned several things that we worked hard for. We felt like we budgeted well, we invest well, we did the things necessary. And now when you separate it, boom, you don't have that anymore. And it's like that was all wasted time. That's the way it feels. That's hurt because men growing up, for the most part, do not like to lose. I know for me, growing up being competitive in sports, especially when I felt like I was supposed to win. Nothing would bother me when you go out play rec ball and or just out and hoop and you play another group of guys and your team is better. I mean, your team is better and they beat you. That bothers you more than anything. And the same with this. You're connected. That's your person. And then when it gets separated, it's like all of it's gone. And it's defeating as a man because men take things seriously when it comes to winning and losing. And this is not even a competitive thing. This is just about staying together. I remember playing with the sons. We would play different video games back then. And for me, I did not want them to leave if they beat me on a video game until I was able to beat them. The competitiveness and the fear of loss runs huge, I believe, in most men. I know it does for me. And it's something when you feel like you can't get something back because you have put your all in all. But how about when it was you? Because see, when you play that video game and you lose and you lose and you lose, you still think that it's not you. You just think that you just got had barely and you can do better. But this real life separating vehicles, rental property, home, etc., etc., etc. It's to the heart. Guilt and shame is tough because men like to fix things and we like to fix things immediately. Now, I'm not the fix things like I like to build stuff, like I like to build a wood shed or build a deck or something like that. But my fix things is if I misplace something, I am searching for it until I have exhausted every means necessary to say, you know what, I am not going to find it. I have misplaced this. And so that guilt and shame is there the exact same way. It is to the point that you beat yourself up daily because you knew that you just had it as far as misplacing something. But it's the same. You knew that you too have a closeness, and to mess that up and to carry that guilt and shame, it is hard because you will carry it for as long as who knows? Only God would know how long you will carry that guilt and shame. Okay, that must just be the glare. Now, some guys fear of repeating themselves, and so they don't know they may slip back up. It's sort of like someone who's addicted to something, whether whatever you may be addicted to. So some guys carry that hurt and pain because they feel like even if it came back to them, they may repeat the same bad situation. I don't personally feel that way. Like I said, working in the field, I kind of know better. But even more important than that, I know now that when you do wrong, you're not only hurting yourself because you are, and you will have that spiritual death that ain't fun, but also you're doing it to God. And for those who have that spiritual awareness, I don't believe that they're going to worry so much about the fear of repeating. But if you don't have God in your life, then you may have that fear of repeating, because you have to understand, from little boys uh, up until, if you know better, if someone teaches you better, if the light bulb clicks on, we as young men are taught to like and try to quote unquote conquer as many females as we can. So we have that spirit of lust on us. And so if you have not removed that spirit of lust off of you, then you may carry that fear of repeating that situation over and over again. So you got that tug of war going on, that you kind of know better, but your flesh is saying something else. And until you can remove that spirit of lust or tame that spirit of lust, whatever you may call it, that might be some of the reasons why some males, some men, some husbands have that fear of repeating, because it would be the worst thing is you have confessed, apologized, gotten back together, and then down the road you back in the same situation. What would that be about? But if you put God first, which we should, and understand that not only when it comes to yourself, what you do to your spouse, you do to yourself, and you also do unto God. The next one that I have as a bullet point: you know you can't make amends, and you have to be in wait mode. That's something different for men, because if you are hurting, you know you've hurt your loved one, your spouse, and they're not ready to make amends with you, because it seems to me that we want, when we do our woman wrong or someone wrong, we want forgiveness quick, fast, and hurt. Let's get over it. Look, I apologize. I'm sorry. Stop thinking about it. Let's get back on track. That person many times ain't ready to just operate like that. And I know I did that personally. I'm like, I'm sorry. I ain't gonna do it again. Let's get back on track and keep it moving. That is so selfish. And for a while, I know for myself, I didn't understand that I was being selfish. It took some time for me to understand that was extremely selfish. I had to have someone point that out to me, that that was selfish. And how dare you do that? And I don't know if it's just me. I'm Look, right now, I'm hoping that other guys have done the same thing. Not that I want anybody to do that, but I don't want to feel so naive that I missed it. Like I said, I work with people. I've studied this and I missed it. It just goes to show you that we all constantly need to be improving and staying connected with Father God, because none of us know it all. We still are selfish. We still only think about ourselves. We only get in tune to what our own feelings are. We a lot of times don't think about what other people are going through. We just want to get back on track. You know, it's like anything else. When you wrong, you think about it. When somebody wrong you, you think about it for a while. You do. You just think about it for a while. But when you wrong somebody and you want them to forgive you, you ready for them to forgive you, and let's get back on to it. Let's 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 go out and, you know, get ice cream. Let's go and get that done. So people don't always make amends when you are ready for them to make amends. Now, this one that I'm about to share, uh, huge for me. Huge for me. This is a big hurt. It's probably a big hurt for standards who are standing and they feel like they were the cause of why they are standing in the first place. Me, for me seeing other couples and knowing what I had was so precious. And I knew what I had was precious because I speak about my best friend from time to time on here. And one of the things that my best friend shared with me, I've never shared this one before, but when my separation happened, my best friend told me that his wife told him, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. She said, well, if Wayne and his spouse is separated, then none of us have a chance. And it was to that effect. And I'm like, that's deep when somebody looks at you as the example of a married couple. If and it's not that they hadn't seen us, you know, fuss before, even though we rarely did. We rarely had disagreements and this, that, and the other. But for someone to say that about your marriage, as you are the lead example of it, and if you two are splitting, then it ain't gonna take nothing for us to split, because no way y'all are splitting up. There's just no way y'all splitting up. Y'all are the definition of marriage. Y'all face are on there. I had my best friend's sister would call us um, Obama and Michelle. So there were people who looked at us as having a very tight marriage. And when I see couples out there, even still today, it gives me a little itch that, man, that's really one of the hurts and pains right there. And I know part of the reason why, part of the reason why is I always wanted to be a better husband to my wife than my dad was to my mom. Now, I don't think my dad was awful, but it definitely could have been better. And I still feel like I was better than my father. However, my mom and my wife aren't the same. So what my mom may put up with, my wife may not. So I have to understand. I felt like I failed. I don't do failing well. The doc in Doc and Queen Ministries, is actually Doctor, Docter, on one of my license plates. And what that was, it was a basketball thing, but it really was more about whatever Wayne is good at. He gonna give his all and all. One, a lot of times physically I was smaller than most guys my age. So I'm giving 110% because I'm competing. I don't do losing. And when I do, I don't do it well. So I'm giving it my best. And then to see other couples, that 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 hurts. That hurts to the core. And that's still something that um touches me today. Uh so I know we've heard people deal with uh, quote unquote false starts, or when you happen to meet back up with your spouse that you've been separated for. I mean, the times that I have, and there's been some times, it, the hurt is not the hard part, and the hurt comes in doing enough but not doing too much, and that's a hard balance. You don't even want to even be in that situation where you can't be who you want to be when you don't know. You overthinking, because one thing I know again about, just by dealing with sports in general, you want to do something where you don't have to think about it. But in this situation where you know you have hurt your spouse, you have to always kind of like second guess what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And you don't want to do too much, but you want to do just enough. So it's tough. It's tough to deal with. Right. I get it, Destiny. I get it. You know, some of us, we take our chips, and we don't we put it all in. We take those eggs that Tara was talking about. We take all of our eggs, all of our chips, and we put them all in. That's just who we are. We just gonna we just gonna give it. And when you do that, you got to understand, you put all in, it doesn't have to go the way that you want it to go, because when you put it all in and it don't work, it's gone. It's like watching those movies and you see the actor, and they may be gambling, and they think that this is it. They think that is it, and they put it all in, and then they lose. But that's what that's just what some of us do. And I think those who are called to stand, that's the personality that many standards have. They're all in. They are all in. And when you're all in, there's a you know, I I'm gonna say use the word gamble because I can't think of any other word right now, but there's a gamble to life. Uh, I even though I'm competitive, I don't like to lose, but I also understand when I'm coaching or when I was playing, I always understood there's going to be a winner and a loser of that particular game. So, with that being said, you got to understand that that's still a possibility. That's why it's so important for us to make sure that when we reconnect, that we have God, because there's no loss with God. God is always on the winning team. And when you try to do it without God, then there's a chance at some point you're going to lose. Doesn't matter. You can be 34 and 0, 35 and 0. That one loss can just change everything. Yes, we want to make sure that we learn from our mistakes. And I know personally I have. I can't speak for everybody else, but I know I have. Uh, easy enough, easy enough to say. I can, without a doubt, know that I've learned from my mistakes, and and just dealing and allowing God to work. God's going to do what He's going to do, and we have to trust in Him. Not always easy, not always easy, and we got to understand it's not always easy. Even for all of us who you may see on here, who you look at them and it's like, I don't know how they do it, how tough they are. But you know, Moses struggled, the disciples struggled, even Jesus on the cross struggled. So we all have that time that we can have a weak moment and our flesh can overwhelm us and take us to a place that we don't really want to go. This is another one that hurts to the heart. When you understand you are the head of the family, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, how you feel about your kids, your grandkids, and everybody that it affects. You know, when people ask you, how is your spouse doing, and they don't even know your situation, what do you say? How do you say it? Um, you know, when you understand that many of her friends, your friends, both of y'all friends together, how you know that people looked at you and they understood that you two are a partnership, a togetherness. You two are one and one. So uh, that's something. Let's see. Okay. And I think I kind of mentioned this earlier. I'm gonna just touch on it real quick again, just in case. Um, I'm in I'm in the helping field. Gosh, um, working from multi-handicap, autistic kids, uh, learning disabled. The list goes on and on and on, and you're helping people on a daily basis, but you have a problem and you feel like you can't help yourself. It's it reminds me of when they were mocking Jesus and they said he can save this and he can save that, but he can't even save himself. Not comparing to Jesus, but I can understand that, Marker. You feel that. You feel that and you say that. I'm helping people on a daily basis and I can't even help myself. Um, you hear, from time to time, especially my youngest granddaughter, who will say different things and, you know, just as cute as can be. And, you know, she would ask about my spouse and she would ask, have I seen her and how we did this and did that. When you can't help your own situation, but you can fix everybody else's. And I think that's part of you know what many of us go through. But we just do the best we can, continue to pray to God, and allow God to do what God is going to do. Okay, okay. This is another hurt that I um, think about from time to time. I say, what have I done? And I usually don't beat myself up with this too much because I've learned a long time ago, once something is done, we can't go back and get it. But I think, when you're younger, uh, growing up, you're younger, you was like, if I just didn't do that. And you kind of like sit on it and think about it for a while because you're younger and you was like, if I just didn't do that, or if I just didn't do it that way, or if I did this, my parents wouldn't have saw that. But it that reminds me of when God said to Eve at the garden, or maybe said it to Adam, but he said it to both of them. What have you done? I think he said it to Adam, because they were naked. What have you done? And that's, I've said that a few times. What have I done? Because again, like I said, I'm, I don't know if I'm uh, a few of I'm one of the few guys I believe that I always growing up looked forward to getting married. And I've told you on the last live about how guys, you can't even get them to even talk about marriage. And for some that I know that have got divorced, it's like they would never get married again. So, when you think about that, what have you done to even put yourself in this situation? But like it was said, I've learned, and I believe it was John, I've learned from my mistakes. So given the opportunity again, oh, I know better. I got this. I got this time or the next time. I got it. So but that's all we can do. We can only control what we can control. We can only do better and be ready for the next time when that next time happens, and just go from there. It is great just, learning and getting closer with God. If nothing else, what has come from this for sure is just learning from God and having faith in God and just dealing with that and just being able to share with other people. I love, talking now to the grandchildren about different things so they won't find themselves in this situation. And a lot of times the best teacher is experience. And just like us all, we heard our parents don't necessarily mean that we actually listen to them. A lot of times we had to put our hands on that stove and get burnt a few times, but at least I am sharing that information and I'm putting that seed out there to not only those who are kin to me, but even to others. And again, that's part of the reason why I wrote the book. Every child deserves a father. Don't even have one nearby, but you can go on Amazon and purchase Every Child Deserves a Father. Also, I have a membership through YouTube now. It's under $4. Make sure if you want information about this journey and the membership, I get a little bit more um, personal about it and seeking more questions on what might can help. My schedule is awfully tight, and I'm already helping people right now in different capacities. But join that membership, ask your questions. I'll come on, do a video tailored to what your situation is. Be making videos. Join the membership. I know it's less than $4 a month. It would be really, really helpful. And that's that. So I did get that in. Another thing that hurts is knowing what your spouse had to go through. What your spouse had to go through. and even possibly currently going through. That is, and I'm not sure why we do that, Destiny. It just really goes to show the enemy still has a hold on us. We're not ready, but at least he can recognize that he's treating you not the way he should be treating you. So there is at least the seed is planted, and with the seed being planted, that's huge. That at least that's a start. But for me, that's big. Knowing what my spouse went through, I know what I'm going through. I know what I went through. I know what I'm currently going through. But what did she go through? I mean, you don't know because many times they don't want to share because it's probably shame, hurtful, and you, the one who said you love her, you did that to her. You did that. The one, again, that all the chips were placed on that side. All the eggs was in that bag. You did that. You did that. Look, I know for me, I don't like hurting people. I don't. I don't like hurting people. I take a punch on the chin for people all the time when I shouldn't put my chin out there. But your spouse, I punch my spouse in the chin. And she didn't see it coming. So that's tough enough. And then, one of the things I think about is, and I had been deleting stuff off of a hard drive, and I saw a video, old video where we were on vacation, and she was asking me how did I feel about her, and I was saying I loved her, but I didn't understand where she was at. She was meaning it, and I took it more as a joke. And so now I see where she was coming from. I took it as a joke because I knew I loved her, and I felt like she didn't have to understand. But I wasn't in tune with her feelings. I was in tune only in mine. And if the two are one, I have to be in tune with her feelings. When at all times, or as best as I can be. And I wasn't. I wasn't. I took her for granted. I took her feelings for being like my feelings. Yes, we are one, but we are separate parts as one. And I took it for granted. And I kind of snickered, in my opinion, on it. Looking at it now, it was disrespectful. It was disrespectful. I saw this maybe about, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I saw it, and it was, in my opinion, it was disrespectful. And anybody who knows me, I'm not going to disrespect you. That's just not what I do. Now we just joking, and we know we're joking, and we're just having a good time. And but I'm not going to disrespect you just to be mean to you. That's not who I am. That's not who I am. I don't want to come across as that. Never wanted to be. And so I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball. And I know that there were other times that I dropped the ball. And it's funny, again, isn't it interesting? We hurt the very one who is closest to us more than we do anybody else. It's something about being together. And that's why we gotta have God in it. We just can't say we got God. We got to have God. Because if we don't, we just pick him up when we want. And actually, we ain't even picking him up. We just thought we picked him up. We have to be in tune to each other. And if you're not in tune to your person's feelings, then how can you give them what they need? Because all you can really do is give yourself what you need. You can only feed yourself. And during that time, I was only feeding myself. And when they separate because they felt like they've done all they can do, and now they're not there anymore, now you pick up that ball again. Because I dropped the ball, but now when I pick up the ball, guess what? It's flat. And that's what it was. It was flat. She had tried her hardest and I didn't catch it. It's not that I didn't mean to catch it. I didn't know no better. But if God was truly in it, I would have never been there in the first place. Because everything I did to her, I would have also understood that I was doing it to God as well as myself. And so I'm just saying, I believe that this is what men that have fumbled the ball are going through when they hurt their spouse, the one that they love. Because truly, I love that woman. I also hurt because I miss out on a lot of things now, and I didn't know how important it was. I miss out on her family events and mine, and just other things that our friends and family have. Because now, if I go to a friend's gathering, it's just me, and I miss out and know about some of the things her family do, and I'm not there. And the only things that I may be there are the things that are unfortunately like death. That's tragic. I'm not there for, the birthday parties, the celebrations, the this or the that. And my wife's family is a little bit more outgoing than mine. So I'm missing out on many things. That hurts. You don't know the little things that mean so much until you're not doing them anymore. Then it shows itself. And those things hurt. And, I think that, for me, again, I'm that only child, or at least grew up as that only child. So I'm back for the most part by myself again. And, growing up, never wanting it, you when you never want something, you don't really just get used to it. Don't really like it. Can do it because now I get in it with God. But when I'm not doing that, I don't really want to do it. And I'm doing a lot of things now. Don't get me wrong. I am doing a lot of things, but there's nothing like your spouse. Why? Because that's your spouse. You're meant to be together. I understand. I understand that. Yes, fumbled the whole suitcase. I mean, we went on cruises, trips. I mean, we would do at least 2 trips together, as well as an extra trip with the grand. So you're talking about at least 3 trips. Not doing it anymore. Not including my wife is an excellent speaker. Excellent speaker. And you know, not to be a part of that. And you know, seeing the growth from that. So just the things that you do together and how she has gained so much growth in different areas and to be able to see it, but now not to be a part of it. And not even including, the hurt that I mentioned earlier about placing upon her. How about the things that if it wasn't for this, the things that she may have dabbled in that she had no business dabbling in? That's part of me. That's part of my fault. Being around people she probably shouldn't be around, doing things she probably shouldn't be doing. Um, those are some of the things. Now, not as involved with certain things that probably she should be involved because of me. As the man, you take the head of that. I'll never forget sharing with my youngest son that even when, and this is before this happened, this when everything was great. I never forget telling my son, when you and a young lady no longer are together, you as a guy, you suck it up and take the blame for it, whether it's totally your fault or not. You just do because you're the head. You're that's what men do. It's on you to make sure things go well. I know it takes more than two, but that was the song. It said it takes two. You're the head to making things be right. You are responsible for the car driving on all cylinders. And now also not there to defend her. You are called to be her protector, and you're not even there. I'm not there. I understand that it's bigger than just physical, but I love that I'm more reserved. My thing is I've always believed in there's no reason to fight for something that's yours because it's yours. And you shouldn't have to fight for something that's not yours because it's not yours. Well, my spouse had some spunk. And there were times that I would have to, get her to calm down. I'm not there to do that. I'm not there to do that. You and your spouse, you are balanced. You need each other. It's a big deal. You need each other because a protector is different. Your protection isn't just physical. It's navigating when there's danger around. You may need to say, they acting up over there. Let's go. You got to all of a sudden now put your antennas up, and you got to, and I've always been good with that. I've been the opposite of quote unquote many of the black people that I see. Now, I don't do black and white too often, but I've noticed that many times a lot of black people, especially younger than I am, they run to confusion. I'm not. The moment I see something about to kick off, we out of here. Protection. And also protection, the spiritual part. You're not here for me to pray over you. There was one time we went on a trip. I know it was in the Caribbean somewhere. And we had just got there. And she was lost. but she wasn't lost. But to me, she was lost. And I'm in a panic because one, I'm in a foreign country. We just got here. We don't know nobody. We don't even really have our room yet. And I didn't know where she was at. And everything, I am just going around. Me, I don't sweat much. For some reason, I've never been one to sweat big. And I am looking all over and asking. And then when I finally found her, I I was in panic mode. And usually I don't do panic mode because one thing I know is you don't make good decisions when you panic. You have to be as even keel as best you possibly can be. However, your spouse is different to you than anybody else. So therefore, you operate different. So I was operating different. So you want to understand that protection is surveying the area, knowing where you should go and not go. When things don't look right. Um, and a lot of times for me, you know, I go out to tough areas. I've always had no problem and was rarely scared of most things. And I think that that's just in the back of my mind, just knowing that God's got me. I tell my mom all the time, and she will call and I get in late, or if I don't call her, or don't, I'm good. I always tell her, I'm good. You don't you know God got me? And I really, really believe that. Same here. Um, even being, you know, my physique compared to most, I've really never been scared. Um, so I say that is that I feel like I can protect. Now, my wife really never thought physically that I would protect. And that's because, first of all, I'm looking to not have a physical confrontation with anybody. That's first. Because I work in a field where it's all about de-escalation first. Physical confrontation is last. So, and then on top of that, it don't matter how big you are. If somebody shoot, you're done. It doesn't even matter. So I'm always about de-escalation. And so I'm always looking not to cause a problem. And I would have to get on her about, you know, the road rage sometimes. And then I would always have to share with her, you know, we all make mistakes, you know, when we're driving. And sometimes you just got to ignore it. It is better to quote unquote live another day. And so I'm always looking at that. That's protection. And then, you know, I always want to feel like, and I'm doing it now. I really feel like I have spiritually protect her, because I know when we deal with this and we're not doing what thus says the Lord, um, God God can has a way of getting our attention, and it's good that, you know, He allows us to protect, you know, our spouse, quote unquote, as much as He will allow us to protect them. Um, Now, my coming to the end, what also hurts, and when you in this divine separation or whatever you want to call this at this point, um, one of the things that hurt, because you get a lot of time to think about this with God, by yourself, while you sleep, yada yada yada. One of the things that hurts is I can remember how big of a deal me marrying my wife was to my father and to my grandmother. For my father was one of my good friends, real good friends. Me and my wife went, and we wasn't married at the time. Me, my wife, my mom, and dad, we went up to one of my good friends' wedding out of town, and we had been dating, but we wasn't married. And my best friend was getting married, and my dad wanted me to marry my wife at my friend's wedding. And so that hurts because I knew how much my dad felt about my wife. And I know how important it was for my dad to get married to my wife and us not, quote unquote, shackle up. I know deep down inside how he wanted us to do things the right way, even though there were some things that he did um, that wasn't the right way. But he didn't want that for me in my marriage. And he had a liking to my wife, and he wanted me to do it the right way. So that was a big deal to me. And then um, after we did get married, my dad died within the same no, within a few months after we got married. My dad passed, and we don't know. I'm suspecting that he knew that he was going to pass, and he wanted to see that because my dad really pushed to be my best man. And my thing was, dads don't be best men. Dads sit back and just enjoy the wedding ceremony. But my dad pushed to be my best man. So I had two best men, and my dad was one of them. And it didn't click to me until years later that possibly my dad knew, and that's why he wanted to be my best man. And so me being in this separation makes me hurt when I think about that. And then at the wedding, and I just got this year, my mom shared with me, and I knew my grandmama. I'm her. It's no question, and none of my cousins would deny. There's no question. I was my grandmother's favorite um, grandchild because I stayed many nights there. I left from school, elementary school from there. I was there more than anybody else, and so when we got married, my grandmother was a lot slower then. And when my mom said that, your grandmother smiled when you got married, I mean those things hurt when you realize that you kind of put a dent in the happiness that people had for you, and you messed it up. You messed it up. We get bothered as kids when we're, building something or doing something, and then it collapsed. It hurts. So we're talking about here a marriage, quote unquote, what I would say marriage made in heaven. So let me check and see if there are any questions. Okay. Yeah, for me, being an only child, and I wasn't an only child. I was only child by my mom. My dad had I have some sisters, but they weren't there. So we, went on vacation a few times, but for the most part, they were doing their own thing, and I'm doing my own thing, which felt like I wasn't doing really anything. Longing, um, and so I knew I wanted to be married, but when you are the one that messed it up, ah, that's kind of tough to sit with. Um, My dad is passed, so it was tough, but you know, here we are. Now I want to, yeah, I think some men run because they've done so much damage, but a lot of times they're not ready. They haven't found themselves to realize why they should slow down. And I mean, I spoke on it again. Society, we, the church, people, family, friends. Nobody's telling the men that it's something special about having that one. It, that's we don't grow up learning about that one. For me, learning wanting that is because I'm sure because being an only child and also watching, I thinking that my dad should be able to do better to my mom than he did. So that was it for me. But for the most part, I don't think that many guys get that. Even in the book, I think there's a part that I allude to. Yes, many of the fathers were there, unlike most fathers today are not there. Even though they were there, but many of them were running the streets. Many of them was mean to their wives, but wives stayed regardless. Not all, but many stayed. I remember my mom speaking about how tough my grandfather was to my grandmother. And then around, as I get what's the name, and they're both older, my grandmother seemed to me, felt like she ran my granddaddy. But hearing my mom and my aunts and uncles talk, it was the opposite way when they were in their quote unquote heydays. He was running over her. And so guys, or better yet, women back then stayed. They didn't go. They didn't leave. Well, today we see the opposite. You know, that's why we all here standing, because spouses, they leave. Where many of the spouses back then, they stayed put. So we do see that things and society and culture has changed. But it is what it is, and it's just different. Now I know that there were some who did, and I think as we go from my grandfather down to my mom and dad to now, I think it was getting to the point where you were having people doing more divorce and separation. But for the most part, around my grandfather's age and time period, they stayed together. Whether they were getting along, they stayed together probably because of the kids. But whatever the reason is, they stayed. And these things, separation, they definitely still affect the kids, even today, even if the kids don't say so. And that's why I'm always trying to teach my grandchildren. My kids are now old enough that they're not going to listen. And, we all didn't listen to a degree. Again, we talked about earlier about the experience, and sometimes experiences got to come through that nothing that anybody can say, the knowledge and wisdom won't even matter. Okay. This all made me think of Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. Then the Lord God said, I see that it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make the companion he needs one just right for him. And I need my companion, the one that God gave me, that's one that's just right for me. I hope that this has helped. And I thank each and every one of you for being on tonight. As I put this up, if there are any comments, put them in, and I will do my very best to answer it. I thank you all for this lovely night, and I hope that this has helped you in a way for those who are standing, even for those who may be listening, that we quote unquote call them prodigals, but they are reformed prodigals, and anybody else who wants to know about this situation. Take care. God bless. And once again, much love.